All right, guys, we are back. We're going to try this again. We think that maybe Bonnie has to be on her phone. Thank you for bearing with us while we're doing this whole technology thing. If you are just now tuning in, I'm HollyAnne Knight of String and Story. It's my job to guide you to quilt with confidence, and I'm so excited that you're joining us, and hopefully we'll figure out the technology. All right, Bonnie, I'm just waiting for Facebook to tell me that you're here, basically, which I suspect you are, so I don't know why it's not telling me. Aw, thanks for the hearts, guys. Let's see. Okay, Bonnie K. Hunter is watching. Bonnie! Yes! Yes! Okay, did you get the invite? It says adding. It says adding. We got this, guys. We got this. Come on. I'm so excited. I think we should all get like major gold stars if we figure out this technology. Bonnie, did you get the invite? It's flashing and saying that it's adding you.
Did we do it?
Yes!
Yes, we did. Okay. All right. We did it. So hang on. I'm setting this down and I got to back away from the camera. Hang on.
Okay, so will you share this on Facebook again? We did it, Bonnie. We're so cool.
We did it. Holy cow. But I need more volume. Just a minute, everybody. Okay. Volume up. Okay. In call volume. All right. Talk to me, girlfriends. What's going on?
This is fantastic. See, it was worth putting the makeup on. Just saying.
Oh my word! I put on makeup for this. Okay, not only that, it's like 5 minutes before we're doing this, and I'm having to do the makeup on thing. And I had traveled with my makeup bag, and I have like 3 different makeup bags. One at the cabin, one that lives in the suitcase, and one that's in the bathroom here. And I grabbed the one from the suitcase because I'm packing for Chicago tomorrow. And I opened up the makeup bag, and my eyeshadow was like in pieces. Yeah. You see this? Look at this.
You're shiny. Look at that.
Anyway, yes. So I'm so excited that this works, and I'm really excited to answer any questions that anybody has on scrappy quilts or the whole process. And you know what occurred to me today is that people might not know about if they follow you, HollyAnne, and don't know about me. We have a leader.
They're crazy if they don't know about you. They need to know about you. Go follow Bonnie immediately, guys. Her page is linked in the caption. Go hit like. Don't ask questions. Just do it.
We have a leader ender challenge that starts in July.
Oh my gosh,
July.
Yes.
The new leader ender challenge. So as I was looking at your picture of the things that you've started to cut up, you're getting into your scraps and you're cutting your strips and your squares and your whatever, you will be able to start using those right away with a leader ender project that's going to come out early July. We're right around 4th of July. So I'm excited. When I do the leader ender challenge thing and I'm thinking about what would make a good one, it's got to be an easy unit that we can easily just keep pieces next to your machine so that when you're working on project A, you grab 2 pieces of your leader ender project and you sew those as your in-betweeners. So when I'm choosing those, I go through what I've got in my own stash that has been sitting for a long time. And in this case, baby, if you've got charm squares that have been hanging around, this is your hint. This is all I'm going to say. If you've got charm squares, those 5-inch squares that are just sitting, the thing I found with charm squares is that, they start out at 5 inches, but then they usually have to be cut down to something else before you can sew them into something.
It's so true.
I stopped saving charm squares because I worked better with strips and individual squares. But if you've got some sitting around or some charm square packs that have been gifted to you or that you've picked up or whatever it is, we'll be able to use those for leader ender time this year. So
I'm super excited. Yay, because that's, I think, something we were talking about when I did my live on Thursday, Bonnie, was people were asking if they're just getting started with the scrap user system. They wanted kind of this is the term I use for myself, so this is not, I like having something idiot-proof when I'm trying something, and I think the Leader Ender Challenge is just that, because I'm scared that if I'm trying to keep track of 2 projects, I'm going to jack it up. But with the Leader
You
Ender,
won't.
challenge. I can't jack it up, hopefully.
You can't jack it up, and it gives you a really great sense of, that accomplishment from multitasking thing.
Yeah.
Which we all love. We want to make all the quilts all the time, all at the same time. But the leader ender thing is a way to just keep two things going. So I'm happy. And if they need to switch where one becomes primary, then the other one can become secondary as leader and ender. And then I never feel guilty about pulling something else in. So that's around the 1st of July. So back to what we're doing here, because I'm so excited.
Super excited. No, that's perfect, because that was one of the first things I was going to ask you about was recommendations for folks who are just getting started.
Yeah.
I shared on Thursday about how I've kind of simplified the units that I cut out, partially because I wanted them to fit on my pretty little trays. And if I did any more units, they wouldn't fit on my trays. But also because my brain was like, I can't hold that many sizes in my head anymore.
Right.
Yeah, so y'all, as you're jumping in the comments, there's a ton of you here, and these comments are moving fast, which is awesome. But fire away with questions for Bonnie. I know I've been getting a lot of questions, and I'm like, I didn't actually invent the scrap user system, so we just need Bonnie.
Yes. Hi, Stella Ann. How are you? This is very cool. Now, you were saying that you're as blind as a bat, and I am very farsighted, but it's still like I feel like I got to get way up here, and they're coming up the screen so quickly.
Yeah.
So
I actually have my computer open just below the screen where it's a little bigger. So
I think I may have to do that, grab big tablet or something. And one thing I didn't do was share this over to my own page. Am I able to do that? Or hopefully they're joining us here.
Public. Yeah, so you should be able to click share and send it over.
Okay. I don't know where that, I'm not going to mess with it right now. I'll share it after, and then they'll catch us next time.
Well, so if anyone wants to share it over to here, Lisa, you're part of Bonnie's group. Share it to her Facebook group.
Yeah.
Lisa,
share it over to the Facebook group. That's wonderful. To Open Studio. Holly just asked, or I may have just missed the name, but somebody asked how we know each other. It's kind of a roundabout way. I found HollyAnne while she was quilting her En Provence quilt on Instagram, and she tagged En Provence quilt, and I check my tags when people are doing that, and then I started following along how she was quilting it, and I fell in love with the photos that she posts with her sweet little boys and her hubby who bakes wonderful bread, and the kitty cats. So yeah, so it was just really fun. And then I was teaching in Georgia this past April, and she said, "You're not going to be very far from me. Would you like to come for dinner?" And I said, "Yes, I would come to dinner." So I've been to dinner. I've pet the cats. Be jealous. Be very jealous. I've had a hubby's bread and homemade enchiladas and guacamole and the works. So yeah, it was very much worth it.
Good dinner. It was fun. Not tooting my own horn, but it was a really good dinner.
It was a good dinner.
I don't do as much cooking anymore because I'm quilting all the time. So it was nice to cook and sit down and have a meal.
Oh yeah, it was really good. But your boys are adorable, and you've just got a sweet little family, and you work so hard. You work so hard to promote your business. I know what that's like, and you've got it going on. It's growing. It's wonderful. So if you guys are getting interested in learning about free motion quilting on your domestic machine, this is the gal you want to talk to. She's got a free introduction to machine quilting. Get going on it. Don't put it off till later. You'll never get better until you start where you are.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. The only thing that's standing between anyone and awesome free motion quilting is a whole bunch of practice. So.
Oh yes, yes. So there's Catherine Hobbs. Catherine Hobbs is in the UK, and I don't know what she's doing up at this hour. Catherine, you should be in bed.
Babe. Oh, but you're in London. I'm so jealous.
Yes.
I just started watching The Crown today. I know a lot of y'all watch The Crown. I'm so hooked.
The Crown is awesome. That's one of the things. I have to watch things like that when I'm home alone because I'm outnumbered by the men folk here. And if I have something like that, there's another one on Amazon Prime
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I can't remember what the name of it is, but it takes place it's about these sisters in the high society in 1700s, and their hair's all piled up to here, It's
That
just
sounds
very,
so good.
very, it's all about the costumes. It's all about the costumes and the fabrics and the everything. So,
Oh, I love it.
okay. So I'm looking for
Yeah.
questions.
Okay, so
Bring me
someone
some
asked a second
questions.
ago where I'm from. I'm from Duluth, Georgia, which is near Atlanta. So just to clarify. And then hang on, I saw a question. If you have a big chunk of fabric, how do you decide what size you're going to cut out of it, Bonnie? What's your biggest
Okay,
size?
so I would say that my candidate for cut down is
Yeah.
half a fat quarter.
Okay.
If it's half a fat quarter or bigger, I will leave it as it is, because if you have a yard, you may need that whole yard to be sashings or setting triangles or binding or whatever it is. And I'm afraid to cut into big yardage unless I need to. So what I've done this for so many years that what I deal with now is just the leftovers of other projects. If it reaches the stage of just half a fat quarter, I'll cut some strips and I'll put them away. It's not that I can't use that fabric once I've cut it up. In fact, I can use it faster, easier, better because it's ready to sew with. Other candidates of things that are great to cut up as soon as you have them. Leftover lengths of border. I like to do 5-inch borders a lot. 4-inch borders are too skinny. 6-inch borders are too fat. 5-inch, it's kind of like Goldilocks, and this bed is just right.
So with you on that.
But if I have a leftover length of 5-inch border, I'll cut it into 2.5-inch strips and put it away. And the backing fabric, when you get your quilt back, or you've quilted it yourself, whatever, the backing's always bigger. We trim the backing off, and you've got this margin all the way around the quilt. And that is perfect for cutting up into a variety of sizes. I
cut a whole bunch of 3.5-inch squares or 3.5-inch strips this afternoon out of border.
Oh yeah. And when you're just starting, if folks already have like partial jelly rolls left over from other projects, you've already got the beginnings of a really good scrap user system going. Two things that work really well together with the 2.5-inch strips. Cut that in half, finished size. 1.5-inch strips and 2.5-inch strips go together really well.
That makes sense.
And if you like to piece bigger, you might be pairing 2.5-inch strips with 4.5-inch units, because 2 and 4, one is half of the other. So that's a great place to start. So hi, Kathy Carpenter. I see Kathy Carpenter. I know Kathy. She lives up by where the cabin is. Yay! That's so wonderful.
Sidebar question: you're so good at mental math. Did you like do really well at math in school? I'm just dying to know this.
Math sucked. Math was terrible. In fact, I took minimal math to get through high school because I hated it so bad. It was so boring, so boring. But if they had made my geometry classes patchwork related, I could have aced it.
Geometry was the only math that I loved, and I literally wrote a letter to my geometry teacher last year and was like, I loved you as a teacher, but now I just need to like love you for my career, because I'm like, I couldn't do this if I hadn't had geometry. But I kind of wish that I'd had this when I had the geometry too.
Exactly, because it would make more sense, and it kind of cracks me up that yes, I'm using my algebra now, because this finished size. The finished size of any unit times 1.414 will give you the diagonal measurement across that whatever. So, but I like to keep the math simple. And that's why with my scrap user system, there's only 4 sizes I save. So I do 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3.5. If I need a 3 for anything, I can trim a 3.5 down, or I can cut it from a fat quarter. But for my storage purposes, I only want 4 containers, right?
That makes sense.
And then I'm always on the lookout for patterns and ideas and things that will use the sizes I've already got. So when you get a magazine or a new book or whatever, and you're going through the pattern, don't just look at the yardage stuff, because that'll make you think, oh, I need 3.5 yards of this. I've got to go to the quilt shop or the whatever. But go further down into the pattern, and you're going to find these common sizes everywhere. Or you can resize the block to use what you've got.
I love that.
Yeah, I love it. But
splendid sampler block that I made. Here, I'll show you this. You'll
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah. I'd love to see that.
I misread the splendid sampler block instructions. So I made this yesterday, which is lovely, except these were supposed to be skinnier, but I just like grabbed stuff from my scrap user system because I just saw it at the top of the page and was like, oh good, I have that size. And then
it was a practice block. There are no mistakes in.
I was like, oh, sorry everybody. I still like how it looks. I'm just like missing the little bit. Anyway.
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay, questions I'm seeing in here.
Says, what are the 4 sizes again? So this is for Jeanette. Jeanette, yeah. The 4 sizes are 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 2.5, and 3.5. I generally skip 3 because 3 for me doesn't play nice with anything. It has to be cut down to something else.
Which is funny because I'm actually using 3 because there's a block I want to make that calls for 3 squares.
Yes, so but if I needed a 3, which is so rare, I would trim it down from a 3.5. So Jeanette asked,
do you cut 5-inch or 10-inch squares out of scraps?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you're gonna go straight to 3.5 if you have a chunk of fabric.
If I needed a 10.5-inch squares I've used for backings before because you can completely annihilate a full width of fabric with 4 10.5-inch squares. Yeah. And I'll piece them as a scrappy back because they finish at 10. So it's easy to figure out how many across and down that I need. But as far as 5-inch squares, no. I would rather use 2.5-inch strips than 5-inch squares. And charm squares that come in a pack are not accurate.
No, they're not. I had to trim down a whole like strip set yesterday because they were 2 1/4, and I was like, well, that's useless.
Right, and sometimes some of the peaky, the pinking on the edge. I mean, there's some that have some severe V's. Then there's some with little V's, but the ones with the severe V's, your seam allowance will leave holes. So
and there's nothing more frustrating than that. Let's see. Jeanette was asking about the 4 sizes. That's been typed a couple of times. Kate wanted to know when the Quiltville String and Story retreat is.
You have to plan on that. When your hubby decides that he can take a long weekend off of work and you can come on up, we could do.
I went 5 days to QuiltCon this year, so he's good and ready.
That's right.
Could, piece a couple days, quilt a couple days,
That might work. Hi, Tim Latimer. Speaking of quilt a couple of days, I think that Tim Latimer needs to come to Quiltville Inn and give a treadle retreat on quilting on treadles. How about that, Tim? I hope that you're feeling better after your surgery.
Cheryl's gonna come. Cheryl, I'm so glad you're here.
Yay, this is awesome. So we've been talking about scraps and the sizes that we use that are the most common that we find in patchwork. These 4 sizes or 5 if you do Holly's 3-inch in there too will give you most common units in the most popular sizes and can be combined in any numerous ways to give you all of the block sizes for the most all the traditional and some of the modern and everything out there. So it's all based on things that play nicely together. So you can sew, for instance, a pair of 1.5-inch strips side by side, and those will make 4 patches or whatever that will go with your 2.5-inch squares. Yeah. Right. And they will make a 6-inch block, which 4 of those together will make a 12-inch block, or the math just works, and it's very, very simple.
I love your math.
Very, very simple.
I love your math. It's amazing.
I like it basic. I don't want to have 17 different sizes of things to choose from. So
that was a question I was getting a lot on Thursday, was about the reason I asked about 10-inch and 5-inch. And if I'm going to need something that big, I'm just going to go cut up a fat quarter.
Right.
By the time you get to
right. So you cut into the fat quarters that have been sitting a long time. And then what's left after you've cut your 10-inch squares from that, what's left is going to be less than half a fat quarter, right? Yep. And you just strip that right on down. So the big thing to get in the habit of is to never leave a basket of untamed scraps sitting around. No bags, no boxes, no baskets. No, whatever. Yeah, no. Yeah, no.
In my defense,
So while
this fabric is actually a project I'm still working on, and I'm still making borders out of it.
okay.
But
Okay.
I have bids.
So
I'm working on them.
good. So get in the habit of while you are cutting out for project X and there's just a little bit left, instead of putting that untamed scrap in a box for later, we know that later never wants to come. You've already got the rotary cutter in your hand. You've got the ruler in your hand. Just slice it down into whatever sizes you are using. You know, the ones that you use the most. And then it's ready to go next time.
And Lisa was asking, when you're lining up the ruler, can you talk us through the best way to line up your ruler as we're cutting these down so they'll be super accurate?
I can. Do I have a ruler handy? Okay, hang on just a second. Hang on.
Those of you who have been on live with me before, you know that I do spontaneous dances. Today we're doing the ruler dance. One time I did the horse galloping past a design wall dance. We're all still laughing about that over at String and Story. Just saying. Okay.
All right, so I grabbed this ruler, just this basic ruler out of my ruler stash on the table. Now you'll notice you're going to want a ruler with very, very fine lines, and there are some rulers that are just harder to read. I have what was called an Ellipse ruler, and it had these gold lines on it and a lip on the edge. Don't use that one to measure because the lines are so thick, you're going to get a lot of variation. This is a Creative Grids. I really love the Olfa Frosted because it doesn't have the big black circles. This one's not so bad. The circles are small. It was after this one that this big black circles got really huge, which made it harder for me to read my lines through. But whatever you like, just make sure that it has fine lines. Now, if we were cutting a 2-inch strip, which would be this black line right here that my finger's running down on.
Yeah.
When you align this on your fabric, you want the line on the fabric, not next to the fabric on the mat. If your line that you're measuring by, you scoot that ruler over and the line just barely touches the outside edge of your fabric, but the line is actually on the mat, you will be 3 threads too short on the width of your strip. And then when you sew that to something else, you're going to blame it all on your presser foot. You're going to say, oh, that dang presser foot can't give me a 1/4 inch seam. Well, it's giving you a 1/4 inch seam, but it doesn't give you the up and over the thread, the turn of the cloth. So in order for that seam to fall where the seam needs to fall, you've got to give yourself the full width of strip to start with, which means that this 2-inch line, no, wait, this way, this 2-inch line is going to be on the fabric with no fabric showing beyond the line. So instead of, I'm a right-handed quilter and a right-handed cutter, so I tend to move the ruler from left to right until that line just touches the fabric. I now go the other way. I start with the ruler on top of the fabric and scoot it until that line I'm measuring by is at the outside edge of the fabric with no fabric showing beyond the line. And that way I know that the line is on, not next to, not sitting on the mat. If it's sitting on the mat, you've undercut yourself. Okay.
That makes sense. I love that.
All right.
That's probably what went wrong with my 4 patches on Provence now that I think about it.
So she says, Bryce says, I cut 1 1/4 inch strips, 2.5 and 5.5 inch squares. I like your math better than mine. Whatever works, whatever works. So,
well, and that math works by your 1/2 rule, right? Because 1 1/4, 2.5, 5. So that principle, but it's different sizes.
The one, yeah, that will work. So Gianna's asking if an AccuQuilt is good, and I find for strips the AccuQuilt is very accurate. And if I put my ruler on top of an AccuQuilt cut strip, it includes the line.
That's awesome.
Yes,
that's good to know because I've been looking at people's AccuQuilts going, that looks really nice.
Hi, Shuna. I saw my friend Shuna.
Yay!
Shuna from yay.
Size or color, Bonnie? Do you sort by both?
Both actually. If you open up my strip drawers, you will find. So I have a big drawer. They're those stackable Sterlite ones. They're under the table side of my long arm. If I open the 1.5 inch drawer, you're gonna find that they're also sorted by color family. So there's like a bundle of red 1.5 inch strips, a bundle of blue 1.5 inch strips. And what I do is let me grab one. I'll show you. Yeah. I'll show you what's
going on. Give us the tour, Bonnie.
Oh gosh. Okay.
treadle retreat is a popular idea, Bonnie, just so you know.
Somebody can see here. Okay.
Those of y'all who are sending me
hopefully
messages,
I'll be able to save this and embed it in tomorrow morning's blog post.
Yeah.
So this is my bag.
So.
This is 2-inch blue strips. Okay. And this is a gallon Ziploc bag. It's got holes in it. I don't shut it all the way so that things can breathe. On the top here. Okay, so my bundles are coming undone. Actually, are these 1.5 inches? These are 1.5 inches. These are not 2 inch. These are 1.5 inches. So I've got them bundled in thirds, pretty much.
Cool.
So the strips are all a variety of lengths.
Mm-hmm.
But I stack them all up on top of each other on my ironing board, and then I fold one end over and then over in thirds like this. I wouldn't call this a jelly roll, maybe a hot dog bun. So, but because they're fairly flat, because they're fairly flat, I can stack those bundles in a bag. Now, the reason I use the bags, it keeps things from getting wrinkled, and things don't get thready on the ends. The one complaint I've heard from people is, oh, I don't cut my scraps ahead of time because they unravel. Well, if you fold them right, and these were little short ends, and so I didn't have length enough to do these in thirds, so I just folded these in half. But they're not going to get that thready. They will be a little bit thready, but the biggest thing is that they're not wrinkled. So if I want to go right to cutting them to length for a project, or go right to making 4 patches or 9 patches or piano key borders or whatever, I don't have to spend all of this time at the ironing board first. I want the ironing board as less as possible. If I have 15 minutes to sew, that means I want to grab my scraps and be at the machine, not at the ironing board and not at the cutting table.
Amen.
Yeah. So that's how that goes. So each color family is sorted by size. So you'll open up my 2-inch drawer and it'll be the same, only the colors will be in 2-inch width. I grabbed this from the 1.5 inches. So I just kind of bundle them around just like this, pretty much, and they're good to go. They're good to go. You don't have to shut the Ziploc bag the whole way. I usually go about 3/4 the way, but leave part of it, a little bit of air, so that air can circulate in there. But if I'm headed to the cabin, or I'm going to retreat, or whatever it is, and I know what my project's going to be, I just have to grab my bag of pre-cut strips and I'm ready to go. This is my happy place. This is my organizing. This is how I get enough done.
I love it. And you're the queen of productivity, so we know it works.
Well, I was the second grader who went home with a report card saying could accomplish great things if she could contain her energy. So
funny, that sounds a lot like my progress reports.
Okay, so I'm trying to. I don't think I can. I scroll this on my phone. Ooh, I can go back on my phone.
Isn't that magical? That's my favorite thing about doing it on my phone.
So here's one from Patricia Saint Germain, or Saint Germain, if she's French. Once you've used a bunch of scraps for a quilt, what is your preferred way to replenish? Do you cut a bit at a time or set aside several hours for cutting? Oh, always a bit at a time. If I have several hours, I want to sew. I don't want to keep cutting. But here's the thing. So let's say I made a quilt with these blue 1.5 inch strips, and now my stash is really, really down on the blue 1.5 inch strips. They're depleted. I just made this quilt with them. Guess what size I'm going to cut the next time I have a blue scrap?
1.5 inches.
1.5 inches. So I live by the law of replacement, and I want all of the colors in all of the sizes at my fingertips all the time. So you can imagine me just laughing at your shallow little baby trays.
Yeah, no, I can totally. Okay, but here's the thing. My shallow little baby tray. This is what she's referring to. She's like laughing maniacally at me. And I'm like scared.
You start somewhere. You start somewhere.
I have to start somewhere, and this isn't overwhelming. So for those of you who are just getting started, this might be less overwhelming for you too. This is like, oh, I feel like I could use this and not like have drawers that
it won't overrun your life. Another thing that works really well is stackable plastic clear shoe boxes. I like clear so that I can see what's in it. Or those, yep, like just like
but
that.
Not like this, because these need to be cut. Don't have these.
Well, they will be. They will be. It's a great rainy day project. And there are days where I don't feel like sewing at all, or I'm just too tired. I'm too frazzled. Can't focus on a 1/4 inch seam, and I will put on a net.
Suffer if you're frazzled? Because mine totally does.
Yeah, yeah, not great. And so I will just put on a Netflix and then just press and cut, press and cut, press and cut.
It's very therapeutic if you're mad about something to slice through fabric.
Yeah.
I'll cut you.
Yes.
Yep.
That's right. And it makes
Not
it better.
Not that I know this from experience or anything.
Okay, so what else have we got going on here? I saw some strips that look like your neutrals. Yep. Do you put possible neutrals in a separate bag, or do you put them with their color family? The neutrals are only with other neutrals. So for me, neutrals are anything with a white or a cream or a beige or a very pale gray, sometimes even a very pastel. If it's way, way, way on the light scale, I'm not going to use it as a color. I'll use it as a background. I'll do those, but beware of those fabrics that have a neutral, white, cream, beige, whatever, background with a colored design on them, because you might find this white fabric with a red flower and think it's a red fabric and it's not. So those are the things to watch for.
I have a great example of that. So here's a gray square with pink butterfly.
Well, and that's one of those, I call those that's a catch as catch can. That I think I would use that as a pink, not as a gray.
Yeah, it's actually in my warms, but to just demonstrate, you gotta watch. And this was actually an aqua fabric, but the pink flower landed on the, so watch. And
the bigger prints, when you cut them up, will give you surprises. Like that.
Bonuses, no extra charge for that, right?
So Nicole wants to know what you.
Nicole, this is what I'm drinking, Nicole. I'm drinking a pale ale.
Well, and I am over here with mystery beverage. Mystery drink. Yeah. It's water. It's water.
Everything from water to pale ale or whatever is welcome here. So cheers to all of you, everybody.
Absolutely. Do you want to tell my folks about your introduction to machine quilting?
Sure. I'm looking to see if there are any questions we missed. Intro to free motion quilting. Guys, this is a super exciting thing, and this is only like kind of sort of publicly announced, so you heard it first here. Intro to free motion quilting is now available on demand. So this is my free online class that starts with like how to put your free motion quilting foot on your machine and takes you through quilting your first quilt with free motion quilting. So we cover 4 motifs. We do a meander, a loopy meander, switchbacks, and swirls. Lots of practice, lots of encouragement. And up until now, I've had to actually run this class through Facebook, which has been super fun. But there's scheduling issues with that, because I've had a lot of people being like, I want to take this class, but I work every Saturday. So as of yesterday, it is now available on an evergreen platform called Thinkific. It's super easy to register for. So stringandstory.com/intro to FMQ. Or if you go to my website, there'll be a little blue banner.
There'll be a little link that they can click.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a, do you want to sign up for this? And you just click the banner and it takes you to the page. And it's so much fun. So I'm so excited that that's now available on demand, and you can watch it at your leisure. You can watch it over and over again. Lisa says it's the bomb. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa, I think you've taken all my classes, which the rest of my classes,
Hi, Michelle. I see Michelle. Yay. Okay.
I quilt with a spring foot, Nicole. I have, hang on, I'll grab it.
This is finally working. So those of you who have just joined in, we kind of hit the bomb. I was trying to log in to the split screen on my laptop, and there wasn't an option to do it. This has to be done with a cell phone. So it took a little bit of doing. Go ahead and show your foot.
Yes. And Patsy, you said you can't print out the poster. Email me, stringandstory@gmail.com, and I'll send it to you as an attachment if it's giving you problems. So I quilt with a little spring foot. Ooh, I'm gonna drop it. See, there we go. I like the clear plastic one because then I can see through it. I know some people will actually remove this little piece on the front. I don't find that it really bothers me. So, and if the noise bothers you, you could try different feet. I found that when I first started free motion quilting, kind of the squeaky bouncing of it bugged me a little bit, but I don't really notice it anymore. So you just kind of get used to it. The beautiful thing about a foot like this is you can buy one that'll fit just about any machine super affordably. Hey, Sandy, yay, you made it. You didn't think you were going to
And I see Iris, and I see Deborah, and I see Carol, and this reminds me, you are way too young, Holly, to remember Romper, Bumper, Stomper.
Nope, that went over my head.
Oh,
I don't know that one. Yeah, so do sign up for Intro to Free Motion Quilting. Even if you normally quilt by check, just give it a shot. It's a free class. This is why it's free. You might find something that you love. I was actually just talking to my friend Kristen. Hey, Kristen, I saw you on here earlier today saying that when I first started free motion quilting, I didn't expect to fall in love with it.
Charnette's in the house too. Yay. Okay.
And I'm totally in love with free motion quilting now. And I love sharing it. And Janet's absolutely right. I do not drop my feed dogs because I'm a rebel like that.
Okay, so my question is, when they sign up for this free motion class,
yes.
do they need, what size of like quilt sandwich do they need to start with? What do you recommend?
I usually recommend, hey Laurel, I usually recommend a couple of fat quarter size sandwiches because they're not overwhelming. So for your first couple of practice bits, we do fat quarters. And then at the end of the class, I actually give you a block pattern for my North Star block. Hang on, I'll grab it.
And you also have a recipe for spray base to get their sandwiches ready? Okay.
Yes, so homemade spray base, you can find, there's a link to that within the class. And I'm trying to remember the URL. If you go to my blog, it's in the sidebar. But we do this block together at the end of the class. You make your first quilting plan and quilt it. And then after that, I really recommend that you jump into a quilt. Even if you take some, some of those charm squares or some 10.5-inch squares and piece a simple quilt top to psychologically get yourself over the hump of quilting your first quilt. Because it's always like I'm gonna wreck it. You're not gonna wreck it. Okay, like, first of all, worst case scenario, you pick the stitches out. Second of all, don't bother. Like, it's your first quilt. It's not going to be perfect, but you're not going to wreck it. It's going to be beautiful and squishy and warm at the end of the day.
And Nicole says that she makes pillows out of her first blocks. It'll get you, making pillows out of those blocks will get you over your fear. So that's, well, and I say there's there's no mistakes in quilting, only pot holders.
Exactly. Exactly. Only cat quilts at my house. I'm like, I have toddlers and I have cats, right? So I can just be like, here, honey, I made you a thing.
Yeah, then they will love it.
Mommy made me a thing.
They will love it. They will just love it.
They do. They just want to snuggle. It's all good, which is so cute. Yeah. So I posted the picture of my en Provence earlier, and Jim was sitting in my lap when I hit publish, and he goes, Mommy, you made that quilt. Yes.
Yes. You train them well.
Ellen, you're exactly right. Avoid picking at all costs. That's totally my motto. I will unpick.
So Anne asked a question. I'm going to talk right over you while I see her thing. She says, do you recommend free motion quilting on vintage machines? Absolutely. It depends on the machine. I prefer a machine that you can drop the feed dogs. And can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? I can't switch, and I'm trying to see what is on camera here. But this is my 1950s wizard, and you're seeing my hair. This is terrible. I got to come over to the side here and see what you're seeing. Okay, so 1950s wizard. There we go. And it's probably backwards in the camera, right? Is it backwards? Okay, so this does it look like is the camera reversed? Okay,
no,
so there. Okay, so there's a knob right here that will drop the feed dogs completely. Once you drop the feed dogs, it's just a straight stitch machine. So yes, it works very easy for free motion quilting. So it just depends on the machine. I know that if Tim Latimer is still with us, because I saw him join in, he may have joined back out, but he treadle machines or treadle quilts on treadle machines, and his quilting is phenomenal. I don't know what his favorite treadle machine is. He's got a whole fleet the way that I do, but there's a way to make it work. You might not want to do treadle quilting or free motion quilting with one of those long bobbin treadles, because the way that the thread feeds off of the bobbin. But there are plenty of round bobbined or even drop top bobbins, just like the modern machines in vintage machines, that will work beautifully for free motion quilting. So why not? Have you ever free motion quilted on your 66?
I have not yet. It's on my list.
Okay.
I'm still figuring out getting my tension balanced on the 66. So I'm still, she and I are still getting to know each other because we've only done a little bit of work together.
Okay.
And if you have a vintage machine that the feed dogs do not drop, like my 66,
Yeah.
I don't think I
Here's
can drop
Tim,
the
and
feed
Tim says he never drops the feed dogs on the
dogs. Okay.
treadles.
Well, and Tim, I don't drop my feed dogs on anything. So there you go,
So,
guys. You can,
yeah.
whichever works.
So,
The thing that I find, and Tim, this may be what you found, is
my friend Jen just
dogs.
joined in. Yay, my friend Jen. So Tim, if you're still there, Tim, what foot do you use to do your treadle quilting with? He says his 66 is his favorite, but what do you put a special foot on, Tim?
Yeah, what foot? What thread? Da, da, da.
I have a denim bag that he quilted for me, and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah.
Let's see. I'm seeing if he comments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I find that my tension goes wonky though if I drop my feed dogs. So that's kind of how I started leaving them up. Yeah. Because that's the one thing I'll unpick for is funky tension. So if you're having issues with it, try raising the feed dogs. It doesn't mess things up as much as you might think it would. I kind of like the friction. It gives me more control.
He says there are dozens. And depends on the fabric, what foot he's using. Because he even treadle quilts leather.
Oh my gosh, so cool.
Phenomenal. Yeah, so you need to look up Tim Quilts on YouTube as well as his Facebook page because he's got.
Tim, drop your links in the comments.
My brother Rick Sherwood. My brother is on. Hi Rick. I'm actually missing a family reunion 4th of July because it's right after I get home from Chicago and I just cannot make myself get on another plane.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yes. Yes.
Linda,
hi, Irene.
No, I don't drop my stitch length, Linda, for what that's worth. I just don't bother.
Hey, Sally. Yeah, my brother. I'm so happy. So, all right, back to the scrap quilt stuff. Any more questions?
Yeah, I'm going to go check my inbox, guys. I know some of you have been sending me questions.
Okay.
And drop them in the comments, too. Love tonight's video.
Yeah. We've got a total of 763 people on right now.
Woo-hoo!
That is awesome. That is so awesome. So while she's looking that up, remember we've got our Leader Ender Challenge that starts the first week of July. And you guys, it's only a few months. July, August, September, October, only a few months until our yardage requirements and colors and background information for this year's Quiltville Mystery. We will have that out to you by Halloween.
I'm so excited. I was literally thinking about that on my run today because I reorganized my stash this week, which I have a question for you in just a second, Bonnie, but someone asked me earlier how I do my yardage. If you go to my blog, Monday's post this week was about yardage. So you can see pictures there. I'm not going to flip the camera around because y'all will get motion sick the way my setup is. And then I'm super excited about this year's mystery. I was thinking about that on my run that I can't wait to see what colors you pick. And then Bonnie was asking what size, Bonnie Lindsay was asking what sizes do you cut out of your deboned shirts?
Same thing. 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 2.5, 3.5, just like everything else. And I feel perfectly fine mixing my recycled fabric in with my quilt shop fabric because I will only use a recycled piece of clothing that feels good to me and excuse me, it's natural fibers. I store them separately. I have a little 3-drawer cart kind of system for those. I don't have as many of those, but there's something really cool about working with repurposed fabric, found fabric. I like to think of myself as the equivalent in the quilting area of the art in the park guy. You see all those booths at the art in the park, and here's the guy that makes these sculptures out of old tin cans and nuts and bolts and bicycle spokes and whatever else and wrenches and whatever. Could he go buy new materials to make his art with? Would his art be as cool if he did? No. So that's just why I love working with the fabrics that maybe they've been sitting around a lot longer. Maybe nobody loves them anymore. Maybe they come from a recycled thing or an old piece of clothing or whatever it is. And then I throw in some new fabric to spice it up a little bit. And it's a combination that you just can't get from a jelly roll. You just can't. And I'd love to encourage everybody who's watching, if you're afraid of choosing your own fabrics, because we all get that way. And we like how this one collection looks because it's all nice and matched and pretty, and you know that things will work because there's no fear of failure, right? If it's already pre-matched for you. Use that as your palette starter. Maybe it's got some aquas and some navies and some reds and some beautiful grays and whatever in it. Now take that jelly roll or that layer cake or whatever it is and go to your stash and pull in other things that you've got in your own fabric to add to that. And it's going to be a whole lot better than if you made the whole quilt with one set of pre-matched fabric, one designer, one manufacturer. There's nothing wrong with that quilt that you made from that one thing, but it'll say more about you and your likes personally if you can curate your own quilt stash and put that in your own quilt, because oftentimes a jelly roll or a layer cake, whatever, is not going to have enough neutrals anyway. So that's always a good place to pull in some more backgrounds and things like that. But once you start working with your scraps and maintaining your scraps and building your own scrap user system, let's say I've got this charm pack and I don't know what to do with it, but I kind of like the colors and I find this place where it might work, and I can thumb through that charm pack and say, oh yeah, well, hey, I've got that bundle of red 2.5-inch strips that will go perfect with this. I've got those other neutral 2.5-inch squares that I can pull in to use with this. So you think of that layer cake or that jelly roll like a plain box cake mix. And it's okay if you make that cake mix just as is, it'll be okay. But if you really want it to be good, you're going to doctor it up and you're going to throw in chocolate chips and the pecans and a little bit of coconut and maybe some more vanilla. And you're going to make this thing better than what the original thing was. Okay.
And next time you come over, we're going to doctor a cake mix because now I'm hungry, just so you know.
That's right. So Rhoda's asking what size pieces of neutrals do I buy? I'm usually in and out of a quilt shop pretty quickly, and because I'm doing it while I'm teaching on the road. And fat quarters are fine, but if I have my choice, 1/3 of a yard, because I get more use out of 12 by 40 than I do out of 18 by 22, just because of the length of the strips and what I can do with it. Now, some shops, I was at a shop in Mississippi last month, and they wouldn't cut 1/3 of a yard. It had to be quarter, half, 3/4. I think they missed that math class too.
Yeah.
So,
also,
so then it became
1/3 of a yard. People,
right? What, 1/3 of a yard? I mean, well, how many feet are in a yard, right? So,
right,
but they wouldn't, and I guess it went for their own inventory system. They were afraid that there was some odd amount would be left on the bolt, whatever. But that forced me. I could get 1/4 of a yard. I could get a 1/2 a yard, but 1/4 wasn't enough. Yeah. But I didn't want a 1/2, so I got the fat quarter. But here's the thing, you know, fat quarters are upcharged and rounded off, right? For convenience. They have to pay somebody to do all that cutting, and I understand that. But if you go into the shop and you pull a bolt off the shelf and you ask them to cut you 1/3 of a yard, they'll cut you 1/3 of a yard and charge you for 1/3 of a yard without an upcharge. So,
and I'm over here
what do you want to do?
Almost exclusively fat quarters. Like, I go into a quilt shop and I just like fill up a basket with fat quarters, and that's like.
And it looks so great. And it looks so great. So wonderful.
Cracks me up. I just love it. Hi Mom, by the way. Thanks for tuning in.
Is that your mom? Which one is your mom?
My mom was Deborah Dobbin. She didn't comment. I just saw her pop up.
Hi Mom.
Makes me really happy. There was another question. Let's see. Charm. Yes, Bonnie did drop hints about charm squares in the upcoming leader and ender. And yes, someone else was asking me about ugly fabrics recently. Per Bonnie's wisdom, if it's still ugly, you didn't cut it small enough.
That's exactly right.
Fat quarter is 18 by 22. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which I feel like I often get shorted, and it's more like 17.5 by 21, just for the record.
Well, yeah. By the time you trim off the really fat selvage.
Yeah, also that. Which I just cut that off, and I put it in my strings then. Oh, which someone was asking, strings. What size do you consider a string, and what size do you throw away?
I throw away anything less than 3/4 of an inch.
Okay.
And for as far as strings are 3/4 of an inch up to 2 inches.
Okay.
And anywhere in between, if it's over 2 inches, it's too fat to be a string. If I'm tired of a fabric, I will just strip it up fairly narrow and stick it in. You guys, my string stash is quite epic. For instance,
Your entire stash is epic.
Yeah, well, it is, and it will only take one dumpster when they carry me feet first out the door. But this is the red string bin.
I think there'll be a lot of quilters who like die if they dump your stash. That's a lot of strings.
My boys will, but okay, so this is a good candidate. It's maybe an inch.
Okay.
And it was just left from something, and you know, I put it in here. There's some stuff like, you know, you might end up with a little piece like this. Stuff like that.
How short do you throw away? Like if it's 3/4 of an inch by what? At what point are you like, this is no longer worth my time?
3 inches maybe.
Okay.
3 inches. I piece a lot of string blocks on the diagonal, and the good thing about that is as you work from the center out towards the corners, the pieces get smaller anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, there's some stuff in here that was like, okay, this was really ugly. But it's fairly red.
Why?
Yeah, it's not cut small enough. But you know, but I love my strings. So
I'm all inspired from your strings because someone asked, do you save selvages? I save selvages. I don't know if you do, Bonnie, but I'm planning on a string quilt that will incorporate a lot of my selvages because I'm like, what else?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of selvages, but what I do, I put in the strings.
Okay, perfect. And for those of you who are asking more questions about strings, I'm planning on doing a video on strings. I don't remember if it's next week or the week after, but it's coming up in the Summer Stash Busting Challenge, so stay tuned. So I mean, obviously we can continue chatting, but I'm gonna actually be at my machine doing a demo. So if you are curious about that, it's coming. Tired of a fabric, you cut strips and tie up plants, and then you compost at the end of the season. Diane, I love that. And someone uses them as ribbons on gift bags. I do that too. What's string quilting? How would you summarize string quilting? Using super skinny pieces and foundation paper pieces? Do you always do them with foundations?
I do, unless crumb piecing, I don't. Crumbs are just narrow or just small hunks and chunks of fabric that you just sew together random fashion, and when you have a piece big enough, just trim it to whatever size you want. But string piecing is narrow strips of fabric. I sew them for a foundation because even though fabric, this was an 1.5-inch strip, so it won't, it's not as narrow as a string, but look at that stretch. So even though fabric strips are cut straight of grain, there's still a lot of stretch. And when you sew them to each other, you can get a very ripply block. So I like to use a paper foundation because it comes out. I don't want the bulk of a leave-in foundation in there. And if I remove the paper foundation, I'm able to reverse press some things that may be too close to the edge to get seams out of the way so that I'm avoiding bulky areas. There's just a lot of reasons why.
I love it.
Do I have anything that is stringy in here? I don't have anything that is string pieced in this room right now. But it's just a way you're making fabric by sewing narrow pieces of fabric over a foundation until you have a big enough piece to cut whatever size shape you want out of that. So it's not that there's not enough yardage in the stash. We are putting it back together so that we can use it again. It's kind of like making sugar cookies. You know, you cut out the sugar cookies and then you take the leftover dough and you make another ball and you roll it back out again until you can't go anymore.
That's such a great analogy. That's perfect. I love it. Barbara, she was saying that you want to make sure that the ruler line is on the fabric, but with no fabric extended beyond the line. Kate, thank you for dropping that link in. For those of you who are asking about my classes, Kate just dropped a link. Bless you, Kate. So wonderful. What are you going to do when there's no more phone books, Bonnie?
I have, you know, I received a box of phone books for my birthday from some unknown quilter that shipped it UPS with no return address on it. So I have a stash of phone books. I don't,
you know, I didn't know for that.
Yeah, we go to doodle pads, or if you reach my age, you know, you get those financial prospectus 401k things in your mail quarterly. They hit my cutting table before they hit the trash. Yeah.
Oh my
So there's a
gosh.
way. They won't stop making paper. They
No,
won't.
they won't. Well, and Sandy Kane, who's tuned in, she put me onto the tip of using deli papers or like confectioner paper. So
Yeah.
I grabbed these. So I do everything big, right? So I have big old sandwich papers that I got really
Yeah.
quite affordably on Amazon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't get a phone book here. Though, speaking of funny age-related advertisements, I'm on Pinterest the other day, and I got an ad for like the 65 and older club, and I was like, just because I quilt. I like sent a screenshot to my friends. I was like, they're like 40 years off.
Well, yeah, and you can rub that in. You can rub that in. But you know, I joined my first quilt guild when I was 26. So I know of wherewith you speak. All of my friends were like, "Why are you hanging around with these old ladies?" And I told them those old ladies were quite the wild ones in their 20s, and you'll want to know, you know, that life can be good later on too. So
I mean, you know, my quilter friends, we have fun, man.
yeah.
Oh, Valerie, you started when you were my age. Newsprint. That's a great idea, Maria. I like that.
You can, and the doodle pads from Dollar Tree work really well too. They're kind of a newsprinty type fabric. They're not going to stop making paper.
Nope. No. I mean, wasn't it, who was it that they tried to quit making freezer paper and there was a riot? Are we sure we're not related, Bonnie? I don't know. You're from like the Midwest, right?
I was born in Minnesota, but I grew up from second grade through high school up until marriage in California.
Okay, yeah. Because well, I'm adopted, so just to drop that bomb on everybody. People are always like, I had no idea. But I'm adopted, but my family's from the Carolinas, so I have no idea. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Prospectus papers for us retirees.
Yes.
You're only 31 now, Katie. I love it. I love it. Sandwich papers. Yep. Good stuff, guys. What other questions about scraps? And then should we wrap up in like 5-10 minutes, Bonnie?
Yeah, I think so, because I still have to pack. I head off to Chicago in the morning, so.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. What time do you fly out?
I need to leave for the airport at 10. So
Okay,
it's not too early, and the quilt, the trunk show's packed. I just still have to pack my suitcase.
But still.
And can I say that there's going to be a sneaky giveaway on the blog tomorrow?
There's going to be a sneaky giveaway on the blog? Yay.
I have not opened this yet. I have not opened it to see what's in here, but I'm giving this.
Should we tease it?
Yeah, I think we should. I think
we're going to tease tomorrow's giveaway.
So I open up okay, so Quilty Box. What's in here? Okay, ta-da! So we have Bundles of Inspiration magazine, which is very cool. There's a lot of cool stuff in here, and there's usually a project that will use up the fabric that they send for you. And this month's this one was archived by Melanie Testa, I think. Yeah. Melanie Testa is the person today for this. So we've got in this box, and this is what I will be giving away on the blog, as well as they do a Quilty Box mini also, which comes with a charm pack of the fabric line and some thread and a pattern to use it. But we've got, ooh.
That's pretty.
That is pretty. And of course they tie it in a double knot. Okay, where's the scissors?
While you're untying, it has been asked, do you cut one size or lots of different sizes from one fabric?
I will usually, I'm now in the land of replacement. Okay. So I will cut according to where I need to fill in. So I have not cut a lot of 3.5-inch strips for quite a while because I don't use those as fast as I do the 2.5s or the 2s. Okay. Or the 1.5. So it just depends what I can get out of the piece, and I kind of look so that I'm not overwhelming myself in just one size only.
That makes sense.
But these are.
I'm still getting started, Lisa. So I started the biggest size and work backwards. Oh, those are so pretty.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Pretty, pretty, pretty. So it looks like we've got in here, I don't know what we're going to make. This is a goddess sheet. Okay, so this is a pressing sheet.
Oh.
So that something doesn't stick. And then there's some Misty Fuse, so we must be doing some fusible applique something. And here's a pattern. Ooh. So this is pattern papers for the project. And then it looks like we're supposed to do a little bit of machine something because there is some thread in here. So if I look at this little card, there's Floribunda Fat Quarter Bundle, a Be Mine pattern. This wall hanging teaches skill building techniques like reverse machine applique. Ooh. And fusing fabrics, all while playing up the focus print in Floribunda by RJR Fabrics and Melanie Testa. On point pattern, Misty Fuse, Goddess Sheet is sure to become your indispensable fusing tool. The Goddess Sheet combines a slick Teflon coated sheer fiberglass for a long-lasting, non-stick, transparent sheet that puts a helpful glossy sheen on fused surfaces. Ooh. And Wonderful black accent thread. So the other pattern is this one. Okay. I love this stuff.
Ooh, how pretty.
Yeah. So that looks like
Look
fun.
at that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So this will be our giveaway on the blog tomorrow. And I'll hopefully have this video embedded too, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Please do.
All right. All right. And other than that, what else do we have on? There was a question about the date keepers that we picked up. I think it was Pam asked about the date keepers. We picked those up at last night at Yellow Freight. The pencils are just a few days behind, so I'm not going to make them available on the website until I have both in-house because everybody wants them together. My date keeper is a perpetual calendar, so it doesn't pertain to any year. So it's a great thing for writing down birthdays, anniversaries, things that you want to remember. I am going to use it myself as a gratitude journal. I want to write something down with my own hand, not type it, not post it somewhere, but with my own hand, I want to write down one thought or one something each day, because those are things that you can look back at. I want my sons to have all this digital stuff. I get sad because all of the pictures are digital. All of the emails and letters are digital. Does anybody print this stuff and save this stuff? We have nothing tangible anymore.
Yeah.
And we're losing the appreciation of the handwritten word. We really are. So that's what I'm going to use it for. But it includes 60 of my quilts on the pages. And there's pages for quilt planning. There's graph paper pages for block designing. And I will have more information on that soon. I did a little video yesterday on my Facebook and my Instagram feed. So if anybody wanted to check that from yesterday, they could, see the truck with the pallet of stuff and see just what's coming. So we'll have that within the next week. When I get back from Chicago, I'll probably start the pre-orders.
That's so exciting. Oh my gosh. And the daily gratitude journal, I started keeping one, I guess, maybe 3 or 4 months ago when I do 5 things first thing in the morning. And it can be little things like we got tomatoes out of the garden yesterday or whatever. But I tell you, it's life-changing because you find yourself looking all day long for things to be thankful for.
Right. And what you search for, what you see is going to influence your whole day. If you're looking for positive things, those are the things you're going to notice. And they're going to overpower everything else. And it really is a mind-changing, life-changing. Yeah.
Amen to that. On that note, thank you, Bonnie. This was so much fun.
Yay!
Yay. Lots of people are asking if we're going to do this again. I would love to.
I think we should.
Let me know.
I think at some point. Fun. Absolutely. Absolutely. And now that we know how this works, maybe you'll be a guest on mine if I try it on mine too. So
super fun.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Check the blogs tomorrow. You'll be able to find this.
Okay. Now, how do we turn